So a rational function basically looks pretty much like this. This is your basic 1 over x type function. If you look further down in the video, you can see that a rational function can take on many shapes, but I don't really know how to explain it. It's kind of like a plus sign that's been split in half, but again, you can have multiple asymptotes. So from last year, or a previous math class should have heard the word asymptote, and it basically means it's either a horizontal line or it's a vertical line that your graph is going to come really, really close to, but it's never ever going to touch it. So what I'm going to do is I am going to add in some things like a plus h. I'm going to add in a minus k. I'm going to add in some sliders so you can kind of see how these asymptotes work. So if I were to take my k value, I can slide my graph around. I can make my k value, let's make it something readable. So let's make it a -1. So what's going to happen now, if I were to graph the line x equal to -1, honey, that's blue line. I don't like that it's blue, so I'm going to try to change the color so that it's a little bit easier to distinguish. So maybe a red, maybe an orange. That's a little bit more distinguishable. So now I can sit here and I can see, okay, my purple line, as I come from the left-hand side, I get really, really close to my orange line. In fact, it almost looks like they touch, and it almost looks like it touches on both sides. But if I were to zoom in, I can see that they start to separate again. And if I slide down, okay, I'm like, okay, looks like they're going to touch again. But when I zoom in, they start to separate. So that's what it means to be an asymptote. So an asymptote is a place where your graph basically disconnects. Same thing if I were to go in and I wanted to graph a horizontal asymptote. So let's say y equals -1. I can see that horizontal line. But if I try to approach +1, so if I try to put that horizontal line at +1, same thing is happening on that horizontal axis. The purple lines are getting really, really close, but they don't actually touch. So it looks like they're gonna touch right here, and I slide over. It's like, oh my gosh, they're almost right on top of each other. But then when I go to zoom in, I can see that they actually begin to separate again because those lines are never touching. That purple line is getting really close to my orange, but it doesn't touch because it is in fact an asymptote, or basically a whole entire line where your graph breaks apart. So last week we talked about holes in your graph where your graph can break apart. This week we're adding in asymptotes, which is a full entire line, horizontal or vertical, where your graph can break apart. And that is actually going to be talked about in the next video, what it means to be continuous versus discontinuous. And that is continuity. Oh my word, here we go.